You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I have to start with Seahawks Eagles. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on the Seahawks. Typical Seahawks game, except their defense played pretty well. You want to tell me that the fact that they were going up against Carson Wentz negates the fact that they only gave up 17 points? You can make that argument, but look. There's a Seahawks defense that struggled all year. They had 6 sacks yesterday. They stifled the Eagles' running game. Let them have this. No one's going to be mistaking them for the 85 Bears, but let them have this game. Besides that, though, typical Seahawks. Russell Wilson did Russell Wilson things. I'll tell you, he just continues to be one of the most underrated quarterbacks in NFL history. When we think of the best quarterbacks in football right now, it would take you a while to get to Wilson. You'd say Mahomes, Rodgers, Brady, Deshaun Watson, Ben Roethlisberger. Wilson's right up there. He's already thrown for over 3,000 yards. He's completed over 70% of his passes. He's already thrown 31 touchdowns. His career stats are off the charts. This guy's been in the league for 9 seasons. He's thrown less interceptions and almost as many touchdowns as guys like Peyton Manning and Dan Marino. There's a great graphic that ESPN had yesterday. Wilson is a future Hall of Famer. We don't think of him as one, but he is. Chris Carson got back in the swing of things. He hadn't played since October 25th, and I really like Chris Carson. I think Carson's the best running back the Seahawks have, and you saw it yesterday. 8 carries for 41 yards. That's over 5 yards a carry. He had a touchdown. Stop giving the ball to Carlos Hyde. Don't give it to Rashad Penny. Don't give it to DJ Dallas. Don't give it to anyone else but Chris Carson. DK Metcalf keeps doing DK Metcalf things. 10 catches for 177 yards. And some of those catches were unreal. He destroyed Darius Slay yesterday. Metcalf said that Jim Schwartz, the Eagles' defensive coordinator, told him, "I coached Megatron, you're not Megatron yet." You don't want to give a guy like Metcalf that type of motivation. Is Metcalf just as good as Calvin Johnson was? Probably not. You gotta remember, Calvin Johnson had terrible quarterbacks thrown to him. Dan Orlovsky, John Kitna, Dante Culpepper, when those guys were throwing to him, they were nothing. Way, way, way past their primes. But if Metcalf stays on this trajectory, it wouldn't surprise me if we thought of him as one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, if he's not there already. My buddy Nick thinks that Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are the best wide receiver duo in the NFL. I'd push back on that a little bit. I'd have him third. I'd have Evans and Godwin, Kupp and Woods, and then Metcalf and Lockett. But I don't begrudge Nick for having Metcalf and Lockett number one. They are insane. Jason Myers didn't miss a kick. I like Jason Myers. Former Jet, made a Pro Bowl with him. Went to Marist. I have a friend who went to Marist. I like keeping an eye on Myers. Like I said, the defense played well. Jamal Adams played really well, as much as that hurts me to say. Rasheem Green had his first sack. That was nice to see. The Hail Mary at the end, though, in addition to being a bad beat if you bet on the Seahawks, you can't let that happen. What's with these NFL teams not being able to defend Hail Marys? The Bills got burned twice. Now the Seahawks are getting burned? It's really not that hard to defend a Hail Mary. Usually, you have the numbers advantage. At this rate, we're going to have a playoff game decided by a Hail Mary. 1 second left. Some quarterback's going to throw it 50 yards into the end zone, and it'll be caught for a miraculous touchdown. I'm telling you, that's what we're on pace for. But now it's time to get into the fun stuff. Maybe not fun if you're an Eagles fan. I mean, I'll tell you, I was rooting for the Eagles. If the Eagles won yesterday, they'd be in first place in the NFC East. Would have been nice to see the Giants in second. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. But it is fun to talk about the Eagles. All throughout the broadcast, Levy, Greasy, and Riddick, who I like, by the way, I think they do a solid job. I've said this before, Riddick talks a little fast. And I don't think he does a great job explaining complex football terms to the casual football fan. But other than that, solid group. They were talking a lot about Carson Wentz's future with the Eagles. It's been a hot topic in Philly for weeks now. And I haven't talked about it simply because I'm torn on it. I'm torn on his future in Philly. I'm torn on Doug Peterson's future in Philly. And I'm torn on Howie Roseman's future in Philly. This is a team that just 3 years ago won the Super Bowl. They put up 41 points against the Patriots. I understand that Malcolm Butler didn't play in that game, but that's still impressive to put up 41 points in a Super Bowl. They followed that up, though, with lackluster performances. The year after that, they narrowly beat the Bears with the help of the double doink. Then they lost to the Saints in the divisional round. Last year, they made the playoffs, but couldn't get anything going against the Seahawks. Deja vu. I said this on the NFL mock draft. You forgot that game happened. That was a terrible game. Super Bowl hangovers are real. And the Eagles are suffering from a big one. The question that you need to answer is, why are they suffering from that hangover? What's going wrong? There is no question that Carson Wentz has regressed this year. He's making terrible decisions. The interception he threw yesterday in the end zone, there wasn't an Eagle within 5 feet of where that ball ended up. His completion percentage is really bad. Every year that Wentz has been in the NFL, he's had a completion percentage over 60%. This year, it's at 58%. That may not seem like a huge drop-off, but I promise you, it is. Wentz is leading the NFL in interceptions with 15. He's never thrown that many interceptions before in a season. Never. I'll tell you, there are a lot of Eagles fans that want Wentz to be benched for Jalen Hurts. You drafted this kid in the second round. You clearly see something in him. Eagles fans are saying he can't be any worse than Wentz. Doug Peterson didn't do much to stop those calls when he put Hurts in for one play. It was a 6-yard completion, and then Wentz went back in. It was bizarre. It was like, what did that accomplish? Why did you do that? A change of pace? Okay, fine. Do it for more than one play. It was bizarre. But all in all, I don't think this is Carson Wentz's fault. He's not helping things. But the seminal reason that the Eagles are struggling is because of that offensive line. When the Eagles won the Super Bowl, their offensive line was the best in football. Now, it's one of the worst. Lane Johnson has missed some games. Jason Peters is playing hurt. Jason Kelce, according to Pro Football Focus, has a 58.2 pass blocking grade. This is a guy who not that long ago was one of, if not the best center in the NFL. Jordan Mailata has a 61.4 pass blocking grade. Isaac Seumalo has only played in 4 games. Matt Pryor has been dreadful. Jack Driscoll has been dreadful. Wentz has been sacked 46 times this year. That leads the NFL. We've only played 11 games. That's 4 sacks a game. Of course a quarterback is going to struggle if he's being sacked 4 times a game. You want to tell me that we've seen good quarterbacks play behind bad offensive lines and they've looked better than Wentz? You can tell me that. I'm not saying that Wentz is a saint in this. He has regressed, there's no question. But usually, those quarterbacks that are playing with bad offensive lines have solid wide receivers. The Eagles have no wide receivers. All due respect to Travis Fulgham, it's a nice story, but no one's going to be mistaking him for Harold Carmichael anytime soon. Jalen Reagor's been hurt. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside's a bust. Nice job, Howie Roseman, taking him over DK Metcalf. I understand a lot of teams passed on Metcalf, but When you need a wide receiver and you take a bust at that position over one of the best wide receivers in the NFL right now, yeah, that's a bad look. Alshon Jeffrey's hurt. He's only played in 3 games. Deshaun Jackson's been hurt. He's only played in 4 games. I like Dallas Goedert. He's a very good tight end, but he can't be the number 1 receiving option. He's not Jimmy Graham. He's not Travis Kelce. He's not George Kittle. He's not Rob Gronkowski. He's a very good player, but he's not a superstar. I'll tell you, I'm putting more this season at the feet of Howie Roseman than I am Carson Wentz. I'm blaming Roseman for this more than I am Peterson. Now, I like Howie Roseman. I really do. He did a great job cleaning up Chip Kelly's mess. But when you put together a terrible wide receiver core and a dreadful offensive line, I've got to hold you accountable for that. The broadcast yesterday mentioned Carson Wentz's contract. I've got news for you, Eagles fans. You're stuck with Wentz. This guy's just due too much money. You can't cut him. You can't cut him this offseason, and you can't cut him the offseason after. It makes you wonder why Jalen Hurts was picked in the 2nd round. You signed Wentz to that huge extension, and then very quickly you soured on him? You've got to double down on Wentz. You've got to reinforce the offensive line. It was pretty easy to predict that Jason Peters would get hurt. He's not getting any younger. Same thing with Jason Kelce. I'm not saying Kelce has gotten hurt, but again, not getting any younger. Add another wide receiver. I didn't like the Jalen Reagor pick. The Eagles took Jalen Hurts over a guy like Denzel Mims, over a guy like Gabriel Davis, even a guy like Van Jefferson, or Brian Edwards, or Devin Duvernay. Guys who haven't gotten much of an opportunity yet, but they have talent, there's no question about that. They would have been better than Jalen Hurts. You brought this on yourself, Howie Roseman, all the calls to start Hurts. I gotta tell you, I feel bad for Doug Peterson. I like Peterson. I'd take him on the Jets in a heartbeat. You want to tell me that the offense has taken a step back? Why do I want him? There's no question that the offense has taken a step back. This offense used to be a top 10, top 15 offense. Now it's a bottom feeder. I get that. But again, there's not much you can do with a garbage offensive line and a non-existent wide receiver core. Yes, Wentz is going to be limited in what he can do. Yes, that's going to reflect negatively on Peterson to some people. But this guy's been in the NFL for 5 years. He's made the playoffs in 3 of them. He won the Super Bowl his 2nd year as a head coach. I understand, after that, bad playoff performances. But he still got there. Here's what should happen with the Eagles, and here's what will happen with the Eagles. What should happen is Jeffrey Lurie sits Roseman, Peterson, and Wentz in a room together after the season, and he says to him, I believe we can win again with this triumvirate. But here's what needs to happen. And he's going to point at Howie Roseman, and he's going to say, you have to beef up the offensive line, and you have to get better wide receivers. He's going to point at Carson Wentz. He's going to say, you've got to play better. He's going to point at Doug Peterson. You've got to help him play better. I believe we can win with you guys. Don't prove me wrong. It establishes a clear mandate. Win or else. What probably will happen is Wentz is going to stay an Eagle. There's just no way around it. With his contract and the salary cap, he's going to be an Eagle. Is he going to be benched at some point? Probably. If the Eagles are out of it in the last game or two, yeah, you may want to see what Hurts can do. Doug Peterson's probably going to go. He's an easy scapegoat. The head coach is always an easy scapegoat. That's just fact. Again, I'd welcome him to the Jets with open arms. It's a million times different than Gates and McCarthy, without getting too into it. It's just an entirely different situation. And Howie Roseman's going to stay for no other reason than Jeffrey Lurie has a really good relationship with him, and new GMs mean new quarterbacks. The Eagles have 2 guys on their roster right now who have the potential to be a franchise quarterback. Carson Wentz has that potential. And Jalen Hurts, you took him in the 2nd round. If you don't think he has the potential to be a franchise quarterback, why'd you take him? Now, I don't think he can be a franchise quarterback, but if you're Jeffrey Lurie, your team took him in the 2nd round. You don't have much of a choice. You have to believe in him. You can't move on from Roseman. The year after, though, that's a different story. You could blow this whole thing up. Moving on now to a new team coming into existence. The San Francisco 49ers are no longer a thing. They will be a thing at some point in the future, but for now, they are the Arizona 49ers. Santa Clara County kicked them out, and now they will play their home games at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona, for the time being. Firstly, let me just say that I don't begrudge the county for making this decision. Cases are on the rise there, as they are all over the country. If they think this is the best way to flatten the curve again, so be it. I'm not a public health expert, so I can't say whether it will or if it won't. Also, I agree with not giving the 49ers an exemption. Some people said that you could give the Niners an exemption. Well, if you give them an exemption, you have to give other teams an exemption. You can't just stop it at the Niners. You have to do the San Jose Sharks, the colleges, the high school teams, the beer league. That's a slippery slope. You don't want to do that. But having said that, you have to give the 49ers more notice. Without being privy to Santa Clara County politics, Kyle Shanahan said that the Niners were caught really off guard by this. They were basically scrambling for a new stadium. Give the Cardinals credit for stepping up and saying, yeah, you can use our stadium for a little bit. I mean, you don't want to upset one of your teams like this. If you're going to have the order, that's fine. But you've got to give them time to get themselves together. You basically said to them, this is effective now. Good luck. Here's your hat. What's your hurry? And you slammed the door right behind them. You can't do that. The Niners bring in a lot of money to the county, a lot of jobs. That's just a bad look. You have to do it better. I mean, now these players are forced to spend like 2 weeks away from their families. That's going to be really tough. Again, I don't hate Santa Clara County for issuing this order. You just have to give the Niners a little bit of time to prepare for it. I mean, here's what you do. You say this order will be effective on this date, and you put that date a little bit into the future. Have it like December 7th or something. Give the Niners time to prepare. I understand you have to flatten the curve. I get that. But you don't want to drive a wedge between yourself and your football team. That's not going to end well for you. Alright, now I'll give you some baseball Valk talk. And I'll start with the formation of a new league. Major League Baseball has announced a new league, the MLB Draft League. Basically what it is it's a league that's going to run from early June into August. And it'll feature the nation's top draft-eligible players going at it in a 68-game season. I gotta tell ya, I think this is a great idea. Major League Baseball completely realigned their minor league system. They got rid of the short season teams. That's where a lot of the drafted guys went. You don't want them going in single A right away. There are very few guys that could do that. Maybe some of the first rounders, but once you get past that, it's not going to end well. You're going to have too many people fighting for playing time, and some of them are going to be overmatched. I mean, I'll tell you, if I drafted someone in the 3rd round and I signed him, I don't want him going to single A. Go to this league, you'll play, you'll go up against players that are in your same league, no pun intended, and you'll get playing time. Now, the one thing I don't like is that there are only going to be 6 teams. Each team is going to have a 30-man roster. So that's 180 roster spots total. Is that enough? It wouldn't surprise me if we saw these teams play spring training type games with lots of substitutions. I mean, I think this idea is really good. I like the idea of not throwing the lower drafted guys into the fire right away. It can help guys who aren't graded that highly boost their stock. But it can even expand past that. There's a real chance that this could compete with the NCAA or the NJCAA. We're seeing the NBA G League do that with the Ignite. They formed a new team and they said, hey, The top college recruits are welcome here. You'll go up against talent that's just as good, if not better, than the talent you'd be going up against if you went to college. The NBA really drove a stake through the heart of the NCAA. This league could do that for baseball. The top high school recruit could say, hey, I want to play for the Trenton Thunder or the Williamsport Crosscutters. Just a couple of the teams that are in this league. I'm going to go there. I'll get paid. In fact, it's conceivable that they could even go to school and do this. The league is going to run from early June into August. Depending on the school's summer break, you may be able to do some sort of online program. Or maybe a hybrid program for a college that's close to Mahoning Valley or State College. Again, a couple other teams that are in the league. I think this could be another death blow to the NCAA. And I'm all for it. Give these guys as much money as they deserve. If they're talented and they're earning money for their team, let them see some of it. It'll be interesting to see how the league copes with that. They probably won't allow players to sign with specific teams. Now that I'm thinking about it, that won't work. I'm also not 100% sure that these guys are getting paid. If they're not getting paid, then what's the point of the league? Just to boost their draft stock? You're not going to get too many blue chippers to agree to that. If you are getting paid, then yeah. You lose the rest of your NCAA or NJCAA eligibility, but you're getting a paycheck. And it will help you boost your draft stock. There's no question about that. This league is going to help players' draft stocks. But what you'll have to do to entice the high school guys to skip college altogether and go into this league is you pay them, and once they say, yes, I'm going to play in this league, you put all 6 teams in the hopper, and it's a random drawing to decide who gets this player. If a team doesn't want this guy, they can opt out. I think that's the best way to do this league. I really do. I like the idea of this. I think it can work if done right. This is a solid job by Rob Manfred, and it's not too often you can say that. Moving on now to the Royals, signing Michael A. Taylor to a 1-year deal worth $1.75 million. He could get another $1 million in incentives. And I don't mind this move for the Royals. Taylor's a solid backup outfielder. I understand he had a bad year last year, but in 2019 he had .250. Granted, limited playing time, but I'll take .250 from my backup outfielder. He also has great speed. In 7 years, he's had 77 stolen bases, has a solid glove, can play all 3 outfield positions. He has a .990 fielding percentage in the outfield. This is a good job by the Royals in beefing up their bench. I have no complaints with this move whatsoever. Alright, now I'll give you some NBA Valk talk. And I'll start with my beloved Nets signing Eli Okobo. Terms of the deal haven't been announced, but it's not going to be an earth-shattering contract or anything. But having said that, this is a sneaky good move by Sean Marks. Let's say the Nets pull off a James Harden trade. Still possible, looking unlikely at the moment, but it's still possible. Odds are Dinwiddie's going to be in that deal. In that case, you need a backup point guard. You can do worse than Eli Okobo. He's a solid three-point shooter, good distributor. He's young. He's 23. He's a former Sun. It wouldn't surprise me if Steve Nash was watching his former team and said, you know what? I like this guy. He said to Sean Marks, I think this guy has talent. Bring him in. Let me work with him. If Dinwiddie isn't traded, Kyrie Irving's coming off a season where he only played in 20 games. Dinwiddie's going to be asked to start. And then the Nets are going to need a backup point guard. Can it be Landry Shamet? Sure. But he hasn't played point guard in a while. Okobo has a ton of experience there recently. The Suns needed a point guard so badly that they really forced him into high leverage situations when he really wasn't ready for him. It did hurt his stock. He did look overmatched at some points. But having said that, he got invaluable experience. He can learn from his mistakes. There's no better teacher for him than Steve Nash. I like this move. If nothing else, he's a third-string point guard. He'll be the 11th, 12th, or 13th guy off the bench. Nothing wrong with having Okobo in that spot. Solid move by Sean Marks, and it could pay big dividends at some point. He has that potential. Speaking of the Nets, a former Net put pen to paper yesterday. Jared Dudley is going back to the Lakers on a one-year deal worth the veteran's minimum. That's just over $2.5 million. I understand that Dudley's best days are behind him. I saw him with the Nets. It wasn't pretty. You didn't want him playing meaningful minutes. Fortunately for the Lakers, they didn't ask him to play meaningful minutes. But Dudley's a really good guy to have off the end of your bench. Really smart guy. Great locker room guy. The best way I could describe him to Lakers fans would be Robert Sacre. Obviously, they play different games. But you remember how Sacre would always be cheering on his team like crazy off the end of the bench? Maybe Dudley isn't as demonstrative as Sacre, but he's going to give that type of an impact for the Lakers. You need glue guys like that. It makes a ton of sense to bring him back. And don't worry, you're bringing back Anthony Davis too. There's no question about that. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying, a manager is like a fellow swimming in the ocean with a cut on his arm. Sooner or later, the sharks are gonna get him.